In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Welcome to Mahragan Keraza 2020. This is part of the Purity Curriculum. The Purity Curriculum is just one part of many parts in the plan that the amazing servants have prepared for you this year. This lesson is called Let Me Grow. We are going to contemplate on a beautiful verse that says, "Do not stir up nor awaken love until it pleases." We're going to understand and contemplate in this verse and apply it to our lives. So please pay attention and let's get started. What is God's plan for purity? If I buy an expensive device and it's sophisticated and it has a really complicated design, I always go to the manufacturer's manual in order to understand how this device can work. How can I use the different features? If this device breaks down, I go to one of the service centers of this device in order to fix it, because I cannot give it really to a third party who might not be able to understand the sophisticated design and might not be able to fix this device. Similarly, for ourselves, we are humans. We are very sophisticated. We have our bodies, we have our thoughts, which are so many. We have our feelings that keeps fluctuating every now and then. Things are complicated around how we think about things. How can we know what is the best way to live our lives, the best way to satisfy God's will? It is to go back to God's plan for everything. So let's understand God's plan for purity. First point is that men and women are created to live a holy life, glorify His name, and bear children that also glorify His name. It's very important to pay attention to this, that men and women were created to live a holy life. They are created as God's image. They are created in order to glorify His name. They are also invited to have a happy life. They are invited to relate to each other. They are invited to have a relationship with each other. And they are also invited to have children. And they are invited to have these children also worship God and glorify His name. Anything that might violate this plan, it is something that we need to pay attention to, because this is probably coming from the devils, and this is something we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Second thing is that God created our organs and our bodies to glorify Him and to develop unity in a married couple. It is part of the marriage relationship designed to bring them closer. The bond of marriage is responsibility and love. It's very important to understand what marriage is and our body organs that we are dedicating and sanctifying in order for it to be only used in marriage. The marriage relationship has to be based on responsibility and love. There is no relationship that can be based only on love, and there is no relationship that is only based on responsibility. If there is a relationship that two people are coming into this relationship just because of the sense of responsibility, this relationship is going to be very depressing. This relationship is going to be very dry. And if there is a relationship that is only based on love, this responsibility is not going to be sacrificial. It is not going to grow forward. It is not going to be there for us in good and bad times. It's only going to be only on good times, because it is only based on the good feelings, but is not based on reality and the responsibility that we need to build. If we review our relationships with the people around us, if you evaluate your relationships with your parent, for example, your parents love you and they are also responsible for your needs and responsible for guaranteeing you a happy life or a good place to live and good education and good food and good clothes. This is how they are showing love, by being responsible of a lot of things in this relationship. But if I have other relationships in my life that are not love and responsibility together, then I have to pay attention to these relationships. Can I continue in these relationships, or it is against God's plan for purity? Next point is that it is profound mystery. Marriage is a profound mystery, beautiful to understand. God's love for the church is like the love of a man to his wife, protective, unified, and sacrificial. God gave us a very beautiful example. The beautiful example is that He said that the relationship between man and woman, me, God, is telling you that this is very similar relationship between Jesus Christ and the church. Jesus Christ and the church, they have a very special relationship. Jesus is very protective of the church. The gates of Hades cannot overcome the church. They are also unified. Jesus is always in the church. We are praying and we are having the body and the blood of Christ on the altar every single day in the liturgy. And it is also sacrificial. Jesus Christ died for this church. He died and bared the pain of the cross and the passions that he had before and during the cross in order to save this church. I have to see every other relationship I might have in my life through this new lens. This new lens is telling me that the relationship has to be protective. This person that I'm relating to, he has to be protective of me, not causing me to be in danger or anything that's similar. We need to be unified, and it needs to be sacrificial. If I'm relating to a person in a dating relationship, what is it that they have to offer? What is it that they have to sacrifice? Sometimes the other partner in the relationship is asking me to sacrifice by doing stuff that I don't really like to do. But what do they have? What do they own to offer? They might be in high school, they might be in college, they might be even in middle school. What is it that they have, that they own, that they can't sacrifice? They cannot sacrifice money because any money that they have is probably coming from their parents. They cannot sacrifice a future because they are still in school and they don't have a future yet. If they are sacrificing time, no, you are just using the time in order to entertain ourselves. But is there anything that they own to sacrifice? No. And this is the new lens that it's very important to look at all of the relationships you are surrounded with this lens. If you are in this relationship that the other party is just taking and not sacrificing, he is not being protective, he is not really unified, he is just all focused about just loving the state of being in love, then I have to pay attention. Because how God created the relationship between man and woman, He created it in that form, that the relationship has to be sacrificial both ways, the relationship has to be protective both ways, and we have to be unified both ways. And He gave us the great example of Jesus sacrificing Himself for the church. Is my relationship has the same form of Christ and the church, or does it have some other forms? We need to understand, how does the devil mess God's plan for purity up? Very important to pay attention to this. The devil is working against God and he is trying to screw up every plan that God has. How does the devil nowadays screw up God's plan? The holy, sanctified, and the lifelong relationship of marriage, according to God's design, has been transformed. This is what the devil is saying. How is the marriage relationship is transformed? Is being transformed into a casual, temporary, and self-serving relationship. The devil comes into your ears and tells you, look around you. Do you really see any happy marriage around that you are trying to mimic? Maybe marriage is not for you. Maybe we just need to have fun like this. We just need not to have any bonds. We don't need to commit to each other. We're just having good time. Why don't we just spend our times like this? Very important thing to notice, that the devil is trying to trick you into changing how you are viewing marriage by telling you marriage is a bad system. All of the married couples that you see around you might have problems here and there. So let's just have a casual relationship, no commitments. During this casual time, we are going to have self-serving relationship. I enjoy being there. I enjoy hearing a lot of appreciation and praising words. Sometimes I enjoy being physical at certain times. And that's it. What else do you need from this relationship? It's gonna just stay for some time, and then it's gonna go away, and you're gonna replace it with another relationship, and you can continue your life this way. And you think that this is how God created it. Remember, God is a great engineer. So if he designs something, he does not change his design for something else. He does not transform his design to something else because he designs it right from the beginning. From the beginning, God created Adam and Eve in a unified, sacrificial, protective relationship. How can you compare this to the devil's definition of marriage? We have to pay attention to what the devil is saying. The second thing that the devil says or portrays, Satan took this holy union and said it is just an expression of love, and any two who love each other are allowed to practice it. So the common thing that you might be hearing around that, oh, being physical or getting close to each other is something that is just an expression of love. If you just love anyone, you can just go ahead and express this love to him this way. It is how God designed it? Of course not. And we're going to understand all of the components of relationships a little bit later in this video that is going to prove this point completely wrong. If how I express love is going to be physical, if it is going to be not in its right time, it might screw the whole relationship up. And we're going to understand this in detail. The third thing that the devil is doing to mess up God's plan is that he is convincing people it is basic need of the body and the natural thing to happen. This is very dangerous message that a lot of people are saying nowadays. They are saying God created you this ways. God created all of these hormones inside of you. God created this physical need inside of you. So if it is in you, it is natural and you need to act on it. Why don't you act on the thing that God had given you in your body? And the devil whispers in your ears and tells you it's all natural. As long as you're not harming anyone, you can go ahead and satisfy this need. Is this a true statement? Of course not. Why? Because God also, as much as he created these hormones and emotions and desires inside of us, he also gave us the Holy Spirit and he gave us our minds in order to regulate and control all of these desires. If you know any person who is just going by what he wishes to do at this point of time, he is not going to be successful. He is not going to be having a good future, because who would like to study? Who would like to work? We have to use our minds to regulate our lives in order to build some structure into these lives. But if we just say anyone can do anything at any point of time because this is how God created us, this is a very wrong statement, and it is going to be dangerous for us to do it this way. Next thing that the devil is doing in order to screw up God's plan, he is encouraging all moves, games, cartoons, and everything around us to point to sex indirectly and fool people by his twisted ideas about God's plan. Something that became very annoying in our lives. We are surrounded by bad images all the time, surrounded by sexual images all the time. I open my phone into different apps and I always bombarded with either pictures or little videos that are having a sexual nature, that are having inappropriateness in them. Sometimes I walk in the street, I find people dressing up inappropriately. Sometimes the jokes I'm hearing from my friends all the time, they are bad and they are having a lot of inappropriate references to physical relationships. I am surrounded. I open my TV shows, and most of the TV shows are having certain moments of inappropriateness. Sometimes it is a lot of moments. Some of the shows are very, very deeply involved in this. Like a lot of the time during any episode of these shows is showing a lot of explicit content, and I'm surrounded by all of this. If I am a person who is walking down the street and living in this world and having all of this exposure to all of this inappropriate content, I might think that this is the new norm, that this is the normal thing to have, that the relationships, that the level of inappropriateness is matching up to everything that I see. I'm seeing a lot of people who are ready to talk in an appropriate way, to dress in an appropriate way, to behave in an appropriate way, to have wrong relationships, to be physical at any point of time. I'm surrounded by a lot of people like this, and I think that I am different. I think that I'm an anomaly, and I think that I need to change myself. I forget what God has designed for my life, seeing all of these people who are misbehaving this way, and I think that this misbehavior is the new norm. And the devil is trying to trick one more person, which is me, in order to live in this particular life. I have to pay attention to this trick too. The devil is trying to trick you away from God's plan for you for purity. Let's read this verse, which is very important verse to teach us how God is looking at me, how God is treating me, how God wishes for me to live my life. The verse says, "Listen, O daughter, consider and incline your ear. Forget your own people also, and your father's house. So the king will greatly desire your beauty, because he is your Lord. Worship him. The royal daughter is all glorious within the palace. Her clothing is woven with gold, and she shall be brought to the king in robes of many colors." God is looking at you as a princess. He is looking at you, like the verse says, as a royal daughter. God is appreciating you, He is valuing you, regardless of what the outer society might think about you, regardless of how the world is viewing you, or how the world is defining what beauty is. God is looking at you and telling you, you are my royal daughter, you are the princess. You are covered. You have to pay attention to this. You are covered in robes in many colors. You are not exposed. You are not showing what should be covered. God, because He is appreciating you, He is calling you a royal daughter. He is calling you a princess. Very important to understand how God is viewing me versus how the rest of the world is viewing me. Why don't I look like the women on TV and movies? Sometimes I have this question. We are watching all of these celebrities, and I'm trying to think why I don't look like them. And sometimes I try to look like them. Sometimes I try to say the same words, talk in the same style, have my hair made in the same way, have my clothes being in the same pattern or brands or manner. Sometimes I try to even change my body shape in order to match these people. And I ask myself, why don't I look like these people who are on the TV? Let's try to answer this question together. First thing, God has made each one of us in His image. What does this mean? We keep hearing this statement in the church a lot, but what does this mean? This means that I'm always striving and working towards to be Christ-like. I'm not trying to be like my friends like. I don't try to dress like someone else, or have my hair like someone else, or joke like someone else, or have my body looking like someone else. I am spending my life trying to mimic Christ. I am trying to be Christ-like. I'm not trying to be like any other person. Because if I'm like any other person, I'm gonna lose my identity. I'm gonna lose the thing that is making me different and distinct. God is making Himself as the reference point. He's not making anyone else as a reference point, because no one else is deserving that I try to become like her or him. I always try to become like God. The second point, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. God made me different and made me distinct. He made me special and different than everyone else. But sometimes I work against this direction. I always try to be like someone else. I try to be less distinct. I try to be less different. I try to be like everyone else. I try to lose what God had gifted me specially. What's wrong with that? This is very wrong, because if I'm trying to be like someone else in order to grab attention from people or from guys, then the guys or the people who are paying attention to me are gonna like what I look like. They don't like me personally. So if there is this popular girl at school or this celebrity, and a lot of people are trying to be like her, so if there is attention that is being grabbed, the attention is being grabbed to this person whom we are trying to be like. But it is not to me as a person. It is not to the distinct and the different part in me. I'm losing the thing that is unique to me in order to be liked, or in order to have some attention, or to get some complimenting words from guys around me. What does this mean? That I'm trying to let these people like someone else. They are not trying to like me because this is what I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be like someone else. Is this what we're trying to do? No, we should be continuing our lives and living our lives to its fullest in the way that God had chosen for me, because this is the most unique way for me. And if someone likes me, he has to like me for the stuff that God had created in me differently than anyone else. Next point is that we must remember that we need to be accepted only by God. Whenever God is looking at us, we are trying to work in order to be accepted by Him. But if I'm trying to work to be accepted by someone else, I'm gonna lower my standards in order to match this other person. God's standards are very high, so I'm always trying to be accepted by a person whose standards are high, who wants me to be better for the sake of myself. But other people who might try to accept me, they are accepting me according to their lower standards. They might be upset if I'm not up to their standards. They might abuse me in order for me to be accepted. They might ask me to do stuff that I'm not comfortable with in order to be accepted. I might force myself to look in a certain way in order to be accepted. I might force myself to talk in a certain way or have certain relationships that are not good relationships to keep around in order to be accepted by other people. Sometimes I need to lower or change my standard to be accepted by other people. I have to remember that I only need to be accepted by God. Next point, in order to answer these questions, celebrities spend a lot of money and they have teams of trainers to help them look good. If we think that what we see in the TV is organic and something that happens on its own, of course not. People spend a lot of money and pay a lot of effort for things to look on the screen the way they are. Are we going to pay the same effort? Or are we going to pay the same amount of money? Of course not. These people are spending all of their effort, all of their time in order to look in a particular shape or form. Do I really need to be like them? Do I need to spend the same amount of money to be like them? I need to think about that. Our job is to focus on our inner beauty. This is a very important point too. Why? Because if I'm trying to focus on someone else's beauty, I'm putting myself into a race that I'm certainly going to lose. For example, if someone is dressing inappropriately in order to grab attention, and then I decide I'm going to dress in the same level of inappropriateness in order to be in this race, in order to be in this challenge, what is going to happen? Someone else might be willing to wear more revealing clothes than what I'm ready to wear. If I'm ready to uncover more parts of my body, someone is willing to uncover even more parts. Someone is willing to go beyond a certain level in order to win this race. My morals and my faith and my family and the people whom I respect and the people who are respecting me will stop me from going into this level. So why in the first place do I go on this race? I have to focus on my own inner beauty. I shouldn't focus on the other people and how they are showing their beauty. Because if I go into this race, I'm certainly gonna lose. Because the devil might encourage anyone to do even more than the maximum thing that I can ever be willing to do. So, very important to understand, we are not going to try to be like someone else. We're not trying to be living someone else's life. We're not gonna put ourselves in someone else's shoes in the context of being beautiful or grabbing attention or anything like this, because we want people to like us. We don't want them to like our shape that looks like someone else. We need to focus in what we can win, what we are different and being distinguished with, and we need only to be accepted by God Himself, no one else who might have different agendas and views. Next question to cover is if someone says I like to wear nice clothes that attract guys, is that okay or not? Let's look into this. First thing is that guys are more visual. We have to understand this about guys. Guys are more visual. They respond more to what their eyes can see before their minds can think. Guys are more visual, which means that they often look at the appearance. I talk to many guys and they say, "Oh, have you seen this girl? She's dressing like this and this and this today." And they are like suddenly are showing a lot of interest toward this person. But what happens a few days after? Even if she keeps up the good look, they are gonna either look at someone else who might be the new thing in this other day because it's catching their eyes more, or they are gonna be like wanting to have something new. The visual relationship that sometimes is giving us a lot of attention immediately, it doesn't last for long because someone else might be attractive tomorrow, or they are gonna just be bored of seeing the same thing over and over again. Is this the type of attention that I need to get? Of course not. Other point is there is nothing wrong with looking nice, but it is important to protect what God had given you. It's very important to protect myself. It's very important not to uncover myself. It's very important to preserve what God had given me and keep it to the right time that is designed by God in order to give it to someone else only during the marriage relationship. There's nothing wrong with looking nice, but there's something that's very wrong with exposing myself. The guy who just pays attention to the looks is not the kind of guy that you want attention from, because he likes what he sees. He does not like who he sees. Very important difference and distinction. Because, as we said, guys are very visual. If I only invest in a relationship with a guy who only looks at me, who only likes what he sees, but he is not related to me as a person, he does not look to me as to my future or to my hobbies or to my personality, this is not the type of attention that you want. Pay attention to that. Is this the type of attention you want, that you need to keep working hard just to catch an eye look from someone, or not? Very important to pay attention to that. Good guys share values of modesty and purity, and they are worth waiting for. The person who is modest and he's keeping his eyes clean and he's keeping his eyes pure, this person who is not commenting on my appearance today, this person who is preserving himself, he is a person whom is worth waiting for. Maybe this is not the most exciting friendship to have. Yes, because this person is preserving his eyes and he's preserving his behavior from making mistakes. These are the types of people who are gonna wait at the right time, and they are worth waiting for. Because when this type of people, when a person from this group likes me, they are gonna like me for who I am, not just for how I look. And these types of people are worth waiting for. Another question to pay attention to: why did God give us intimate relationships? Why did He allow this in our bodies? Let's pay attention to that. First thing is, intimate relationships is an expression of love between two who have been united through the work of the Holy Spirit. Let's pay attention to this concept. If there are two people who are relating to each other, they are gonna relate in 4 ways. What are these 4 ways? They are gonna connect mentally, they are gonna connect emotionally, They are gonna connect spiritually and they are gonna connect physically. The person has mind and they have emotions and they have spirit and they have bodies. When a successful relationship happens, these four components has to be connected in a marriage relationship. Okay, now imagine that there's a relationship that starts in the right way. We connect mentally and emotionally and spiritually first, and then wait for marriage and then connect physically. This is a successful relationship. What about the relationship that is not successful? The relationship that's not successful starts with the intimate physical part first. What's wrong with starting with the physical part? Let me tell you. If you start with the physical part, the rest of your relationship is gonna uh, go away. You are not gonna connect mentally, you are not gonna connect emotionally, you are not gonna connect spiritually. Why? Because the physical part is overwhelming the whole thing. If there is a physical relationship that is going around in my life, try to notice what's happening, what happens whenever you meet this person that you go physical with. The first thing that you do after meeting this person is that you are trying to be physical again. You are anxious to resume what we have started in the last time we met. And the physical thoughts are the thing that is overwhelming my mind. And then I don't have the mental connection, I don't have the spiritual connection, I don't have the emotional connection. But the right relationship is based on the mind. I'm convinced that this person is the right person for me without any other influence, without any other physical influence. I'm convinced that um, our spirits can grow together towards heaven. I understand that our emotions are balanced and we really like each other for who we are, not just liking the physical part. And then God designed it that after marriage we do the physical part. Because if I start there, the other three are gonna break down and I'm gonna be blinded and I'm not gonna be able to see if this relationship is gonna work for me or not. So, why did God create intimate relationships? This is part of a very big equation that relates two people together. If I misuse it, this means that I'm not going to be able to bond to the other person the other ways. And believe me, the other three bonds are much more important than this last bond. This last bond has to be the crown that you get after you build the other three bonds correctly. But if you start with the crown, you are not gonna work through any of the other things. And whenever the desires calm down, then we discover that, oh, this person is not the person I like. This person is not the person whom I'd like to live the rest of my life with. And then things go south from that. When experienced in holy bond of marriage, as God designed it, it is good. It's very important to have God in our intimate relationships because this is how God discussed it and how God designed it. Real love gives and not takes. First, you give your mind, your heart, and soul, and then last, even the body, to the person that you loved and bonded with through God in marriage. This is a completion of this love. This is the system that God had created for us in marriage. As we explained, we relate to each other in three ways first, and then we relate in the fourth way whenever God permits. But if we start the other way around, things can go south. Next question. Is it controllable? The desires that and the wishes that I have, the hormones that are working inside of me, is it controllable? The answer is yes, of course, it is controllable because we are not animals. We don't just act on any desire that comes into our minds. We have to think about it, we have to evaluate it among other thoughts, and we have to see if this fits what I need to achieve in my life or not. But not anything that comes into my mind, I just go ahead and do. Otherwise, life would have been a very different place. If I just desire to steal something, should I go ahead and steal it? If I just desire to waste all of my time without studying, is this a good thing to do? Of course not. Humans are built with self-control. They are built um, with plans and thinking and filters in order to guide the many feelings that God had given them in order to have a successful, planned, structured life. But if we don't control that, what happens at this point? This is something that's very hard. Very important verse in Galatians. It says, I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh, for the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another, so that you do not do the things that you wish. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. What does this verse mean? A very important analogy that you probably have heard before is that imagine that you are tying an eagle with a dog. If you are feeding the dog and starving the dog is going to be strong and he is going to drag the eagle down. If you feed the eagle and starve the eagle will be able to fly and drag the dog behind it. The eagle is our spirits, and the body is the dog in this analogy. If I focus all of my life around satisfying my body, whether by everything that we see or by the ways we talk or the bad relationships I have, the body is going to be stronger than my spirit. And then whenever the spirit tries to connect back to God or tries to tell you to do the right thing, what happens? You quickly shut it down because the body is strong. But if I live my life in the other way, that I try to feed the spiritual part, I continuously really pray to God, I continuously really study the Bible and try genuinely to understand what God's message for me. If I pay attention while attending in the church, if I attend church regularly, if I have a continuous good relationship with my spiritual guide or father of confession, the spirit is going to be strong. And whenever the spirit says no about something, it is going to be very easy for me to do. But if I live my life in the other way around, the body is going to win. If I live it in the right way, the spirit and the eagle are going to win if I feed them correctly. It's a choice, of course. We can control it by the power of the Holy Spirit and we can overcome temptation, but it's not easy. Stay away from the cliff. Usually, these types of feelings are like a cliff. What is the cliff? The cliff tells me it is okay to go through this path. It has a slope, but it tries to cheat you that you can stop yourself at any point of time. But you don't notice that your speed keeps increasing the more you go towards this cliff. And then at the time where you want to stop yourself from falling, this is when the cliff ends and you might fall. Similarly with a lot of things in our lives. Sometimes we allow certain bad thoughts to come into our minds or through our eyes or through our ears. And we keep saying it's not too bad. It's just a word that I'm hearing. It's just a video that I'm watching. It's just a conversation that I'm having. But I don't know that these thoughts come into my mind and keep snagging and keeps stirring up these desires and these lusts inside of me. And after a while, it is not going to be controllable because I'm moving very quickly towards the cliff. The best and the easiest moment to stop myself from going down the spiral is at the beginning. I need to protect my ears, protect my eyes, protect all of my senses from having all of these attacks through them in order to be able to control myself. If I allow little things to happen, if I allow little shows to be shown, to be seen that has inappropriate scenes, if I allow certain types of clothes in my wardrobe, if I allow certain words to be said, if I allow certain friendships to be around me that are inappropriate and source of stumbling in my heart, if I allow these little things to be in my life, then I'm gonna feel it is not controllable anymore, and this is not okay. Last point in this question, it says that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water and by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. Beautiful verse that talks about the relationship between Christ and the church. As we said earlier in this video, this relationship is similar to the relationship that God has designed for me to have in my life. That it is very similar to the um, the relationship between Christ and the church. What does Christ do to the church? He is making sure it is spotless, is making sure it is glorious, is making sure it is without blemish. And I have to deal with myself in a certain way. That I want to make sure that I don't have gray life, it has to be white life, it has to be spotless. I have to be very careful protecting all of my senses from attracting all of these bad things into my mind. Next question. Is it okay to want to learn about sexual topics? Sometimes I'm curious. Sometimes I would like to learn more things about these taboo topics sometimes that no one talks about in church or no one talks about at home. It is normal to be curious about your own body and other bodies. God created you in a curious form. Your mind and your eyes are seeing a lot of things, and you are built to be questioning things and to be discovering things. It's important enough to understand that there are time and place for everything. There's time and place for everything. Whenever we learn about something, it doesn't mean that we have to act on it right away. For example, you might be able to work, but you don't work before you are 16. Does this mean that just because you can work, this means that you start a job right away even though you are 10 or 12 or 13? Of course not, it is illegal. So we might be able to learn about a lot of things, our bodies might be capable to do a lot of things, but I have to understand that capability does not mean that I have to act on it right now. There is time and place of everything. So learning is okay, but after I learn, what do? I have to understand that there is a time, important timing, and important place for everything. Make sure you verify your source of information. It's important while you are curious not to look at the wrong source of information. Talk to your mother, talk to an old female servant whom you trust, and she is trusted in the church to serve your age, and address them and ask them all of the questions that you might have. Don't ask a friend who might not know either about the answer, and they might just make up any answer, or they might have just heard something from a wrong source too. You cannot verify what they are telling you. Do not try to learn from videos from internet, because these videos just represent the views of their creator, but you don't know if their creator is having good beliefs or bad beliefs. Always verify your source of information. Always ask a trusted adult in the church or in your family. Ask your mom. Ask an old female servant. Ask Abuna about the questions you would like to have. But make sure that you have good information and good information source. Last thing is that for bad image, turn your eyes away. Bad images are not going to teach you anything. Bad videos are not going to teach you anything, because what's happening in these bad images and bad videos is something that is the furthest from the truth. If you learn from there, you are going to have a very distorted image of how God created you and how God designed your body and how God designed you to be in your life. You cannot keep the birds from flying, but you can stop them from nesting on your head. This is a saying that I think was said by Pope Shenouda. He said that if you are sitting in the park or something, you cannot really prevent birds from flying above your head, which are the bad thoughts, but I can prevent them from building a nest on my head. So thoughts can come and go, but if I keep the thought in, if I dwell on it, if I think about it, if it keeps going through my head, this is when it is going to build a nest. This is when I can be blamed, because I'm not protecting myself. Okay? Next question. Can I tell my father of confession everything during confession? The answer is obviously yes. Why? Because he is a representation of Christ and he will never judge you. Imagine God already knows your thoughts. If God knows your thoughts, is it going to be shameful to expose them? No. And the priest is the human form in front of you, but he is representing God himself during this conversation, and he will never judge you. God and your father of confession will be sad for your struggle, but they are not going to be angry at you. They are sad that you are enslaved to a particular sin or enslaved to a particular relationship, but they are not going to be angry at you. They want you to be set free. They want you to have a full life. But if there is a problem, they are going to be upset, but they're not going to be angry. Huge difference between both stands. Your father of confession has heard similar things from other people and he will never judge you. Don't worry. They are not going to surprise your father of confession with something. He heard it all before. You have to focus not on the telling part. You have to focus on the treatment part. How can I treat myself from that? He takes your sins and struggles and give them to the Lord. Your father of confession will not remember your weaknesses and will never disclose them to anyone. Very important question. Is it ever too late? Someone can say, after I heard all of this talk from you, Abuna, I have to think about it. Something bad might have happened in my life. I might have made the wrong choice before. I might have dwelled into this relationship that you have been warning me from. Is it ever too late or not? Remember that Christianity is all about second chances. It's all about letting you restart your life, but don't restart it while you are planning to go back to the bad life. Restart it with a full will that you are going to start over. And Christ is promising that He is going to renew everything as if it started clean. He is always willing to give you a clean slate, only if you are honest in your heart to restart your life. It is never too late, but now is the perfect time for you to come back to God, even if certain bad choices have been made previously in my life. How can I apply everything that you told me, Abuna? First thing is flee temptation. When you are put in a bad situation, escape it. Why tempt it? This happens all the time. This happens all the time. I have this group of friends who are going to start talking about this topic. I'm sitting in my room and I'm very tempted to open this bad image or bad video. I'm having this particular relationship that is always drawing me away from the purity life. Why tempt it? Always escape. Don't think that you can control it. Don't think that you can get closer to the danger and escape from it at the right time. The more you get closer, the less ability you have to escape from it. Second tip, fences. Build fences or protection around your heart, around your ears, around your heads, and around your feet, around your eyes, and so on. Protect your ears from listening to bad things. Protect your head from dwelling into bad thoughts. Protect your hearts from having wrong relationships towards the wrong people in the wrong times. Protect your feet from going somewhere that might be bad. Protect your eyes from looking at any inappropriate scene. If you protect yourself, if you don't allow all of these things to come into your mind, I promise you, the life of purity is going to be easy and very controllable. Friends, you have to be careful of who your friends are. You know this famous saying that says, show me your friends, I'm gonna know who you are. Look at the friends of your selection and see, is this the future version of yourself that you would like to see yourself in? Or this is something that is gonna drag you down? Limit free time. Free time is your enemy. Because if I have free time, usually my body stirs up against me and my feelings and lots stir up against me. I have to limit free time. I have to learn how to be productive. I have to use my time in a good way. because free time, remember, even though we are coming up to summer, even though we are in COVID 19 quarantine and we're spending a lot of time at home, build a good schedule, have goals, achieve them, make sure that your day is busy. But if you have free time, this is going to be the beginning of um, a very big slope that's going to end up in a very bad cliff. Remember your Father God. Run to Him. Keep Him in your life. Remember that God is right next to you. A lot of people keep saying that we can imagine that God is sitting in that chair next to me. I'm trying to keep God in every aspect of my life. I'm always judging my behaviors and say, will God be okay if this behavior is happening? If God is going to be okay if this thought is coming to my head and I'm dwelling in it. I need to remember that God is my Father before Him being my judge. And I need to run to Him even if I make a mistake. Even if I make a bad choice, I need to run back to Him and keep Him in my life. Our ending verse and ending thought, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. Very important to understand this verse. Very important to understand how unique I am, how marvelous I was made, how much I'm appreciated in the eyes of God that I don't need appreciation from anyone else. Remember the verse that we started with, do not stir up nor awaken love. It's too early in this age to stir up or awaken all of these feelings until the right time comes, until it pleases. And glory be to God forever and ever. Amen.